Thank you.
Charmaine, thanks very much for making time for us today, and congratulations on making it to the third round of the interviews. And I'm glad to get the chance to finally meet you. I've been hearing a lot. First of all, your resume is very impressive, including an MBA from the Sloan School of Management at MIT. And I also found your long tenure with VF Corporation in Denver, 8 years. That's also quite impressive, especially in this day and age. But I am curious what led up to your departure from VF.
Sure. Well, Terry, I'm very excited. The panel and your team, whom I've met thus far, had been phenomenal. They're so impressive. They're very excited about the work that they do at the company, and they were very generous with their time and really explaining what it takes to be a part of the company. And therefore, I thank you for your time and for welcoming me as well. My departure from VF Corporation stemmed from a restructure. The company is undergoing some really serious changes right now. And to refresh your memory, VF Corporation is a company that owns a portfolio of outdoor brands like Vans, North Face, and Timberland. The portfolio is changing a little bit, but I do hope the best for them as they go through this change. And while I was impacted, the time that I spent since being laid off had been productive. I took some time off. I actually went to the Philippines to help my parents with a AI automated workflows project. And with my parents being the way they are, they were reluctant at first, but it ended up being really excited with what's to come. I also started engaging with a nonprofit that I've been admiring for some time, and High Beam Foundation, which is led by Yasmin Yamat, has welcomed me into the board of directors. So I've been trying to actively really pursue understanding what the needs are of these underserved communities and the high schoolers who are really showing some amazing potential. And third, I've been upskilling. There's been a lot of AI work that I've been diving into thus far, and I know that there's some stretch and there's some learning curves there to be overcome, but it's an exciting time to really be diving into this work. As a matter of fact, I'm actually working as a teaching assistant for a course called Mastering UX for AI Applications. And that is stretching me in ways that I've never been stretched before, but that is the name of the game. And therefore, I'm presenting to you what I come with in terms of my background, in terms of my knowledge to hopefully be considered for the role in the company.
Oh, okay, that's great. That really answers that question very well. Now, you've heard about our product and the complexity of the product, and when leading a product that touches multiple tools, multiple vendors,
Sure.
how do you ensure coherence and adoption across the whole ecosystem?
Oh, isn't that my life? In platform product management, that is the everyday reality where I try to practice by designing around the full user experience and customer journey, not just individual tools. And I try to work upstream with the partners to really connect the dots before launch or before production. So in any multi-partner environment, the risk isn't just fragmentation. It really is teams solving for their own swim lanes without a shared view of the user journey. And Karina shared this with me with my interview with her. So that's why when she was telling me about her story, I was really just nodding heavily, like I absolutely have lived this every day. So when I was in charge of our loyalty program at VF Corporation, so this spanned across CMS, email, and service platforms. I started by mapping the experience from end to end. And from each of those swim lanes, we know that there's the brand and their own incentives. There is the vendor track that needs to be on their own production roadmaps. But then there's also our product teams in working with engineering to do our own launches as well. So it's really is a multi-step effort to coordinate with different parties. I've worked with different teams, so content ops, analytics, our vendors, like I said, and we shared a campaign calendar as well as known standard metrics that we really shoot for and aim for in order to understand participation, engagement, adoption, and other performance metrics. I also partnered with our teams that drive training and support, and this is not just for early success, but for enablement in order to build feedback loops and help us refine the product as we move further along. So from there, we also wanted to ensure that adoption is scaled because we didn't want to launch features in isolation. We want to make sure that we told a connected story across every touch point. And with that, keeping in mind the ecosystem mindset, it is especially critical when you're stitching together multiple platforms, multiple teams under a single brand experience that everybody is on the same page. Therefore, communication is key and communication is absolutely critical.
Thanks. I may have some follow-ups on that, but I do want to move on to a question. Now, you talked to Karina in the last round, and I hear that went well. But for us, Q3 has just started. We're still revising our Q3 product roadmap, starting to plan ahead for future quarters as well. How do you prioritize a roadmap when business, marketing, and technical priorities compete?
I aim for a shared clarity across teams. And this could stem from really translating competing priorities into business impact, constraints, sequencing decisions that all can be aligned. If I could just distill that, prioritization with our roadmap, whether in marketing, technical, or even with the own brands, with their own certain campaigns going on. I try to put in place and keep in mind the idea that product strategy is ultimately linked to prioritization. And this is how. Product strategy sits between the mission and vision of the company and the actual roadmap upon which things need to get organized in order to go live, while also understanding that as a product manager, we need to understand that we have to make decisions with the limited resources that we have, but then pick those decisions that would make the most impact. And therefore, when prioritizing a roadmap, when it comes to working with business, marketing, and technical priorities, I start by making sure we agree on what impact actually means. Are we driving revenue? Are we driving adoption? Are we driving support load or overall backend performance? Then from there, I frame the competing asks using value versus trade-offs. And we often use a simple scoring model or a narrative brief that compares the outcome. And on the product side, I try to bring engineering and marketing into early conversations to gather input. When priorities conflict, I don't force consensus, but I help teams be unblocked, but also see which decisions will keep us more aligned towards our vision.
Yes, thanks. Now that leads me into my next question. I'm going to put on my VP of Engineering hat for this one. Tell me about a time when you had to earn trust from the technical stakeholders. What worked? What didn't work?
Uh, I've I've always tried to build trust with engineering by bringing structure, business clarity, and humility into the partnership from day one. When going into meetings with our engineering tech leads and our architecture managers, I go in there and don't pretend that I know everything because I actually lean on them for their expertise. At the same time, they trust me to translate what's going on in the business side, and in this case, customers and our brands, to really understand what's going on from their perspective that needs to be put in place with what they have to drive. So, for example, when we began rolling out our virtual assistant program at VF, engineering was cautious. They were actually pushing back because it involved live customer flows. It's going to involve AI tooling layered on some legacy systems that they're trying to roll out and launch via a headless commerce system. So in the beginning, I started by co-writing the problem statement with them. I also tried to enable and understand high contact drivers that could be automated or deflected without loss or experience. So my backlog really combined user stories with agent verbatims and analytics so that it's clear in terms of what we're solving for and why. We held daily check-ins. Again, the communication piece is super critical. On those check-ins, I owned the scope and really wanted to be accountable for the shifts and telling the team transparently to really keep them in the loop, and also made sure that I was transparent by inviting them to really flag technical debt early so that I myself could also talk to our customers and our brands of what really was happening. What didn't work at first was pushing fast without full alignment. And what I had to learn from that exercise was I needed to shift to make sure that long-term stability is just as important as rollout speed. And therefore, there's a lot of those trade-offs that needed to be addressed in terms of the roadmap and what we wanted to go live with, as well as really the timing and the context of everything else happening. But that helped me in turn be a good partner to our engineering teams, and they acknowledged me as their advocate as well because we shipped, we produced, we were successful in these releases, not without scars, but eventually they were able to see me and my team as really a true partner that understands their perspective and not just telling them what to do.
Yes, thanks. And I want to circle back on something that you said, actually not in your answer there, but a bit earlier.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you were the first one to raise it, which was how do you see AI changing what you do in this role?
I'm of the school of thought that we're still in this age of AI where we need to learn so much, and so much in particular in terms of how it actually enhances the human experience. So, for example, for this role, which is ultimately we are here to serve as PMs to help our agents be empowered to do their job, to engage more customers, to be successful in closing the deal. So now, given that the housing market, so we're talking about agents here who are working with this global real estate brand. These agents they're in an uphill battle given where the housing market is. It's harder as ever than before. Affordability is still an issue. The high market rates are a problem, and therefore we're seeing high inventory. And we are seeing houses that are in the market for a longer time than usual. So we want to make sure that the agents have the tools to empower them to really win and land these deals. I see AI coming in to be able to automate some of the redundant pieces that really set them back and take time from them being able to engage with a customer. So I see AI being number one, a support for that piece. I also see AI to be incorporated in the tools that we're going to be launching for this role as one that would inform the agents even better. So in talking to our customers and really having a better understanding of the macro environment with what's happening in the housing market, I see AI as really being the co-pilot of our teams and our agents to do the job effectively.
AI being the co-pilot. I don't know if that pun was intended, but it works well in any case.
Yes, and I know that there's been some school of thought there in terms of AI taking over our jobs or whatever other horror stories there may be. But I think there's still, I'd like to take the positive lens of really understanding this technology in terms of how it improves our workflows and in terms of how it acts. It's here to serve us until they start until they start really taking over humanity. But until then, they're helping us.
Just one last question is about your work-life balance, how you see it, and how important it is, and how you expect to convey that to your team as well.
Of course, Terry, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm a night owl. And with my patterns in the past, with a day that is full of meetings and projects that need to be done, sometimes I actually see a quiet time at night to focus in on some work that is not being interrupted. And that's just my process. Now I understand that my team will have boundaries. Absolutely, as I do too. My team will have boundaries, and my team will have different ways of how they're structured their day, and therefore I will respect that. Absolutely. And the same way that I will ensure them that my processes should not open up or in any way break down their boundaries. Here's an example. So, because of that quiet time that I referenced, I put on my email for emails that I sent out at a certain time after 5 o'clock in the day that there's a little sentence disclaimer that says, I sent this email at a time that is within my set schedule and patterns, and I do not expect you to respond, but please, do so when you have flexibility and within your schedule. Something along those lines. I know it's just one sentence. What I gave you was at least a paragraph, but in order to respect my team's boundaries, that is one mechanism that I approach. But overall, my approach is respect boundaries and really understand different working and operating models.
Just one last question. You don't have to answer right away. How soon can you start?
Tomorrow.
Thank you, Charmaine.
Thank you, Terry.